We believe that co-conspirator 1 seems to be aiming at somebody who's a boss within the OTF organization that could that could put money up and also promise music opportunities. He's aiming at someone who would be Durk or could be Durk's brother who passed. But the only person living would be Durk. It could be Durk.
Look into OTF Jam.
I think we looked into him already.
He's the one that ate the cheese.
No way. No way.
He's the one that said, since y'all calling me a snitch, then I'm gonna start snitching.
It seems Lil Durk may have finally acted on his desire to get revenge for his close friend King Von, but it looks like it might cost him big.
So you made a diss and said something about Von. That's why I don't. You ain't did shit. You did zero.
Now, while many of you already know about that, what you might not know is that it looks like there's now more proof on who betrayed the whole thing. So far, there are 3 main snitch suspects, but it looks like it's becoming even clearer it's one of them particularly, especially with new revelations that have come out about him. Anyways, for those of you who don't know, let's give you a short recap before getting back to our main story. So just hours ago, reports broke that 5 Chicago gang members, allegedly linked to Lil Durk's OTF crew, were paid to target Quando Rondo out in Los Angeles as retaliation for the tragic incident involving Lul Pab, a close friend of Quando Rondo's. These gang members are now facing serious charges, and if convicted, they could face life in prison. The indictment against them alleges that their flights, rental cars, and other expenses were covered with credit cards directly tied to OTF. Now you've caught up onto the main story then. Apparently, things took a sharp turn when members of the crew started talking. To avoid a possible 12-year prison sentence, one of them reportedly gave information to the police, which ultimately led to Lil Durk's arrest. Of course, news of this arrest shook the internet, with fans and bloggers quickly speculating about who may have snitched. Rapper King Yella was one of the first names to come up, with fans recalling his previous statements to the police about Lil Durk, despite Yella denying he'd ever snitch.
He had released some paperwork talking about how you were getting arrested and they say you named a whole bunch of people.
I ain't named the police named them.
Then attention turned to Brick Baby, who had been very vocal recently about Quando contacting him and thinking he'd been set up.
Like, who died?
You can't say that no more.
Oh, because of FVG Cash? Or who?
Nah, because Lil Pab.
Fans even spotted Brick Baby live on No Jumper reacting to Durk's arrest with a nervous look that only fueled suspicions.
Oh yeah,
Slide for Von, right? Yeah.
They say you can't say that no more.
Yeah, play.
Why?
Y'all gotta see again. They got you up there. Yeah, this is crazy.
Now remember when I said that there's a third suspect that appears to be the actual snitch? It's none other than OTF Jam, guys. Apparently this guy is heavily suspected of being the one that might have provided information to the cops. In fact, he was directly accused.
Look into OTF Jam.
I think we looked into him already.
He's the one that ate the cheese.
No way. No way.
Now, beyond the accusation, new details have also come up heavily suggesting that OTF Jam might have been wearing a wire at some point. Imagine that. Of course, the speculation only grew once police files started to leak online, showing strong links between Lil Durk and the suspects. 3 out of the 5 men allegedly involved in the revenge hit had their mugshots released, including Didi, Vonnie, and Boogie. Reports show that these men were close to King Von, as they were seen in multiple images with Von, shopping for jewelry, and hanging out together. The fact that these men were so connected to both Von and Durk is adding fuel to the fire.
So, we just looked at him. Let's go over there. What up, bro? Boss, you good? My boy. Let's go. They got real in here, man.
As we all know, this whole conflict stems from the tragic night King Von lost his life. Afterward, Lil Durk and OTF appeared to go after NBA YoungBoy's affiliate, Quando Rondo, and his crew, who were believed to have been involved in Von's death. At first, Quando tried to avoid beef, even messaging Lil Durk privately to ask him to back off. But Durk reportedly wouldn't let it go and began buying up concert venues where Quando was supposed to perform, costing Quando a lot of money and missed opportunities. Realizing Durk wasn't about to back down, Quando responded with his track, Soul Reaper, where he dropped lines like "N ran up on me, then we spanked him, I'm talking lights out," jumped out with that pipe out, making his position crystal clear. Interestingly, Lil Durk stayed quiet for a long time, likely holding back while he made strategic moves. There's talk he may have even set up a deal for those willing to avenge Von to get some financial reward for their actions. But when Lil Pab was sadly offed at a gas station, Durk seemed to claim responsibility, releasing a song where he rapped, "They like Durk, he a singer, he won't smoke you can believe whatever you want, I got your folks hit."
He won't smoke. You can bleed whatever you want, I got your folks here.
Quando didn't take that diss lightly, and he clapped back by calling out Von and even taking aim at Von's sister in his track Want Me Dead. In the song, he raps, "My favorite op dead sister talk too much, no, I don't like the B. Lil Timmy rolled her brother up, got stepped on in some Nike kicks."
Dead sister talk too much, no, I don't like the Timmy roll her brother up, got stepped on in some Nike kicks.
Then, Durk responded in a feature with Babyface Ray, using the moment to taunt Quando over the death of Lil Pab. He referenced Quando's emotional reaction when he first learned of Pab's passing, rapping, "You look on the news and see your son screaming no no."
Look on the news and see your son, you screaming no no.
Quando's raw reaction to Pab's death caught on video showed him grieving deeply and shouting on the sidewalk.
Savannah rapper Quando Rondo, a passenger in that car, frantic at the side.
Now let's dive into the chain of events that led to the tragic loss of Quando Rondo's cousin Lil Pab during that fateful trip to LA. It was August 18th, and Quando Rondo had just landed in LA with his crew, which included his sister and his cousin Lil Pab. Like many rappers in the game, Quando followed the common tradition of tapping in with local affiliates whenever you're in their city. Quando is connected with a Crip set in LA, so naturally he reached out to let them know he was there. Who he tapped in with exactly isn't clear, but it's pretty typical to connect with your own set for safety, especially if you're known in the streets. But things took a dark turn after this. Not long after he tapped in, OTF and Lil Durk's crew allegedly had not only Quando's location, but also where he was staying and all the details of his itinerary. Now it's still up in the air how OTF got this information so quickly. Was it just a coincidence, or did someone leak the info? Either way, as soon as Quando landed, it seemed like OTF was suddenly aware of his every move. After learning Quando's whereabouts, it's said that Durk's people moved fast. Flights, rental cars, private jets, everything was booked urgently as OTF members rushed to LA. The urgency wasn't random either. Reports say that a bounty had been placed on Quando's head, allegedly by a co-conspirator 1, the main person financing this operation. Many speculate that co-conspirator 1 is actually Lil Durk, given his high rank and resources in OTF. It's his label, his credit cards that were reportedly used for booking all of this. Flights, hotels, rental cars. The setup seemed all too organized, with multiple people involved in what looks like a revenge mission.
We believe that co-conspirator 1 seems to be aiming at somebody who's a boss within the OTF organization that could call that could put money up and also promise music opportunities. It's aiming at someone who would be Durk or could be Durk's brother who passed. But the only person living will be Durk.
Once OTF landed in LA, they moved like clockwork. They got what they needed. Cars, hotels, ski masks, firearms. They even communicated using coded messages to avoid suspicion. Eventually, they all gathered near Quando's hotel, knowing his entire schedule, even when and where he'd be heading next. On the day of the ambush, Quando was driving a black Escalade, with OTF members tailing him in a white BMW. They tracked him discreetly, trailing his every move. It's said that Quando wasn't even aware he was being followed. When they finally caught up with him at a gas station, they wasted no time. OTF's crew parked nearby, hopped out, and began firing. The tragic part is, Quando himself was inside the vehicle, but his cousin Lil Pab was outside when the shots rang out. Pab was hit, but Quando was fortunate enough to make it through unharmed. However, their actual target, Quando, escaped without a scratch, while his cousin didn't survive.
Shots fired, a fight taken to the streets, and this chaotic scene, the ending of a shooting that started in Los Angeles, California. Sheriff's deputies pulling out a man who had been shot in an SUV. Savannah rapper Quando Rondo, a passenger in that car, frantic at the sight.
Afterward, the crew gathered at a food spot to settle the financials. They talked about how the money from this hit would be split up, who would get what share, and once everything was sorted, they quickly left LA and headed straight back to Chicago. Now, Lil Durk had set himself up to stay clear of any direct ties to the whole situation. He made sure to tell the crew, look, even though you're using the OTF credit cards, don't book anything under my name, my family's name, or anyone remotely linked to me. Durk's intent was to be nowhere in the official paper trail, and the reason we know he specifically instructed co-conspirator 3, who many think is cooperating with the feds, is because this person was tasked with booking the private jet for OTF. Durk wanted to make it clear, don't use his name for anything and keep him out of it as much as possible. Once the crew got back, the payments were handled by another OTF member, likely OTF. He was the one in charge of making sure everyone involved was paid and kept quiet, so Durk wouldn't need to get involved in any direct dealings. And for a while, it looked like things were going according to plan. That is, until someone started talking, and that's where OTF Jam comes into the picture. OTF Jam, who was arrested back when he was just 17 for an attempted murder, did 12 years in prison, only getting out in March 2022, a few months before Lil Pab's murder. While we don't know his exact role in the situation, he was tied to OTF and had some level of involvement in the events. Now, after the murder, everyone involved seemed to be good. They had gotten their money, the fans had no leads, and it was looking like they just might get away with it. Then, in March 2023, just a few months after Lil Pab's murder, OTF Jam was picked up again, this time on a gun charge. This new case brought him back into custody, and faced with the prospect of going down for another long stretch in prison, Jam decided he wasn't about to do another 12 years. He started talking with the feds, giving them enough to piece together what had happened and start building a strong RICO case. With Jam cooperating, the feds had all they needed. They began putting together who made the call, who was in the car, who covered the flights, and all the other details they'd been missing. Durk apparently wasn't blindsided by the snitching either. Word was he'd anticipated arrests could happen, even suspecting his birthday bash concert in Chicago might be the moment the feds would swoop in on him and the crew. But nothing went down that night. The feds held off, probably to avoid stirring things up during such a high-profile event, and just a few days later the arrests started rolling in, tied directly to the murder of Lil Pab. So now, things are looking tense for Durk. The details are lining up against him, and while he's managed to keep himself distanced from the paperwork trail, the feds have a lot more connecting dots than before. It's going to be interesting to see if Durk can maneuver out of this one, or if this might be the case that finally ties him up for good.